Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Bud Churchward, WB7FHC. In this series of videos, we've been building the Nexus DR-X digital radio cross-patch. It's a radio controller that allows us to run various digital modes on amateur radio. So we've got it all put together now. We can put the soldering iron away and start assembling the various layers of this board. I often call them a stack. So I'm glad you joined me. Let's get on with it. If you'd like your own Nexus DR-X kit, go to WB7FHC.com to find all the details. Well, let's take a look at the parts that we have here to work with. We've got the FeePi that we started with way back in part 1 of this series. We've got our Nexus board that we built up. There's a little real-time clock here. We've got a bag of hardware, some acrylic parts for a stand, and we've got a couple of patch cables. You will need to provide a Raspberry Pi, and you can build this up with any of the Raspberry Pi 3, 3B Plus, any of those versions. Some people have built it with the Raspberry Pi 4, but you're going to find that you are not going to be able to use this hardware that we have here if you're going to use the Raspberry Pi 4. The problem with the Raspberry Pi 4 is that these connectors here are taller than on any of the 3 models. And so when you go to put our board on, the FeePi will be in between the two. They will collide. They're going to come together here. So if you want to use a Raspberry Pi 4, you're going to have to get creative and design your own system of how to build the stack up. You have to work around the physical constraints of the Raspberry Pi 4. You also are going to want to think about how you're going to cool that thing, because they do run a lot hotter than these guys do. So let's start by taking the acrylic stand here and getting this paper off of it. It'll just peel off like so. This will be the base that we'll build up from. There's a notch in it. That's going to line up with the slot for the SD card on the Raspberry Pi. So, we got to get this off the back as well. There we have it. The base is ready to go. I might point out that this acrylic that we're using here is a 3/16 inch acrylic. And for some of our international orders, depending on what all you think you want in the package, we may be shipping this with as an 1/8 inch acrylic, and the reason for that is the total weight of the whole package when we decide to ship it internationally. There's a threshold of 8 ounces. If we go over that 8-ounce threshold, the international shipping price jumps $10, and that could be pretty significant when it's already $15 to send it. So we can solve that problem by going to a lighter acrylic base and save our international friends some money in shipping. So that's going on there. Next, I'm going to open up the a bag of hardware here. You'll find various size standoffs in here. Some little silicon pads, we'll put those on at the very end. This little dot is going to come in handy to insulate the printed circuit board from a part on the Raspberry Pi. So to start with, we want to find these smaller 6mm standoffs. There are 4 of them. And we'll set those aside. And then we will also want 4 of the smaller screws. You're going to find there are 2 sizes of screws here. And we want the little guys to start with. So here's the 4th one. You see the difference in the size here. These longer ones will go on the top, and that'll become obvious later. So we'll just put a standoff here. Let's do it this way. We put a screw through there, and then take a standoff, and we'll put it on here. And you don't need any tools for this. Simply put them on finger tight. Just twist them on by hand. And that's plenty tight enough. Oh, my big hands and these little parts. And the last one, like that. These are all M2.5 parts. Okay, we'll set that down. Then we'll take our Raspberry Pi. Remember, the SD card holder goes above this notch. And we'll set that down on here. That's a nice tight fit. Now we'll go to these standoffs, and what's left are these 2 styles here. We have a 10mm standoff. Maybe it's 11. And we'll put that on here. Yeah, I think it's an 11mm. I could look at the directions and tell me. We'll screw those on right in here. There's 8 of these, but we'll put 4 of them here. Again, I'm not using any tools. You don't need any tools for this. Just put them on. Finger tight is plenty. It'll stop turning for you. That's good enough. Now, our FeePi, the sound card, is going to go on next. Line up your pins. Kind of make sure that everything is in place there. And then you press that down, and it will go over those back 2 standoffs. And now we can put another 11mm standoff on top of that. One down here. Just like so. Now, this is a convenient time to get our patch cables out. And the cables that I use a 90-degree on one end and a straight one on the other. And we'll put the straight ones in to the FeePi. And we'll do this now because it's much easier to do it when the things aren't all covered up by the board on top. So we got a simple problem here with a simple solution, and that is the FeePi is only a half size. It's the size of a Pi Zero. And so we have a space in here between these two standoffs. We need to kind of make up for that same distance over here, which is why you'll find two nuts in the kit, in the bag. So that will make up the difference in the space that we need. If I can get it started. They're tiny. Once you get it started. So that just fills in the space. It makes that standoff just a little bit taller. There would have been more room for my fingers in there if I had done this before I put the plug in. Okay. Now I can put the last two 11mm standoffs on there. Just like so. Now we take our Nexus board and it's going to go on here. But before we do that, we'll take this dot and we're going to stick it over this connector for the Ethernet connector, because this part right here and that part there are going to come really close together and we don't want them to short out. So now we'll line up the pins back here and we will put the two boards together like so. Went right on. That's good. Okay. Finally, we have these 18mm standoffs. They're female on both ends. There's 4 of those. Make sure it has threads. I have had these things come from the manufacturer where they didn't have threads on them. Hopefully that won't happen. Probably not. Out of the hundreds that I've ordered, only 1. Okay. All right. Now you see why we put this little piece of sticker down here to separate this part from the case on the Ethernet jack right there. And then you'll see that our audio jacks are going to then plug in here. This is the patch cable right there. So they'll go like that. Now, finally, we would put the acrylic top on. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to plug in the RealTime Clock. This RealTime Clock has a little tiny battery on it. And unfortunately, international rules make it illegal for me to ship this battery to any of our international customers. So we'll give you a real-time clock module, but the battery won't be in it. You'll have to find the battery and put it on there, and you have lots of choices. You can kind of wire it in yourself and get creative with it. But let me tell you the truth about this. This is a real handy thing to have, but it's not at all necessary. This is only necessary if your Raspberry Pi has no internet connection. And we decided to add the real-time clock to the project because so many of us were building Go kits, and we wanted these things to work out in the field where there was no Wi-Fi or no Ethernet, and in such then the Raspberry Pi didn't know what the day or the time was. So this is an optional item, and so if you don't have one of these, it's not a problem as long as you have an Ethernet or Wi-Fi connection. So don't worry if you don't have the ability to put a real-time clock on here. It won't be needed if you've got that kind of a connection. Okay, that's looking good. I'll show you how the acrylic top is going to go on. In fact, rather than going through that process right here on camera, let me just bring one in that's already set up. So here you see we've got the acrylic top on the case. We could put that on last, but what we would do is there's a hole in there, and that hole is set up so that you can easily put a pencil through it and click this little button that's right down here. That seemed like a real good idea. In actual practice, I found that it's pretty easy. Just reach in and click that button with my finger. So I rarely have to use that. And quite often, we just don't even bother to put the top on. Leave it open and let it run. Okay, I got the paper all off the top of this thing. We'll put it on our board here. So the large hole is going to go over our little push button, and these screws, the longer ones, are going to go in there. This time you will need a tool. You're not going to be able to put this in just with your bare fingers. But like with many things, we'll start a couple screws in here. We're not going to tighten it down because we do want to be able to move the top around to adjust it a little bit. Last one. We'll go ahead and put him down snug. Go back and get the other 3. That works so nice. Okay, now I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to add some feet to the bottom of here. You can decide kind of where you want to put them. These little silicone pads, they're made by 3M. They pop off of this little square, and you can put them on wherever you like them on the bottom. Okay, we built it. Haha, it's done. A lot of fun building these things. I hope you give it a try. So this is going to be the final video in this series of actually building the Nexus DR-X. We'll have some more videos though about how to get the image on the SD card and take a look at some of the programs that we can run. We'll even do a video or 2 of putting this thing on the air. I've really enjoyed making this series of videos. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I certainly appreciate the comments that I've received. I get a lot of likes. We like that. I hope you'll share this video, and we'll see you again soon.
And hey, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.